There is a 2 by 2 matrix about when we're giving feedback to people, talking about stuff, topics, working out things. Um, and if you if you draw a box and then you divide it up into 4 quadrants, and across the top you put positive and negative, okay? Positive and negative, which means when we're discussing things with each other, we're giving feedback to each other, okay? We're generally going to be talking about things that are either positive or negative. I'm going to be saying to you, well, let's just take me, for example, with you guys. We get feedback every day. And what would be a example of this? Positive would be you're saying, I've read some of the things where, you like the mix between talking about a little content and getting callers. Okay, so that's something you're saying that's really positive. I like the way you do that. I like the way y'all set it up that way. Okay, so that's a positive thing. A negative thing would be you give me feedback. If we're driving along the freeway and we got a blind spot, we start to drift into the other lane when the car behind us honks the horn. That's negative feedback. Very, very helpful. Thank you for telling me, because we could both end up in a ditch. So negative does not mean bad. Negative can save our lives. We need, and I go to the dentist and he does an x-ray. He comes back and he says, well, all of these are looking good. Positive feedback. You keep it up. But back on this corner, you got one spot there that we better take care of. That's a negative feedback. You've got a cavity, right? But very, very helpful. So I want you to think about when I talk to my spouse, friend, family, coworker, kids, whatever it is, it's going to be a mixture of I'm going to be saying things positive and things that are negative. Okay, that's a good thing. All right. Now, those are the top 2 columns. Over on the side, we got the rows, right? On the side, helpful, not helpful. Helpful, not helpful. Think about this. If we could be in the helpful columns, okay, or the helpful row of both columns, that is a really, really integrated and vibrant relationship. Okay. So if I can give you positive feedback that is helpful versus positive feedback that is not helpful, then we are increasing positives. If I can give you negative feedback that's helpful versus negative feedback that's not helpful, doesn't drive anything forward, in fact, it reduces things, then that's not good. So let me talk a little bit about, I said the goal is you want those top 2 rows full, right? We want to be really actively giving each other really good input in our conversations about I really like this, and I'd really, this isn't good. I want this changed or whatever. That's really, really good. But we want it to be helpful. Now, you might not think about this next point, but I want you to think about it. You can screw up another way. And you know how that is? In the helpful 2 boxes, we can only fill in one of them. Only one of them. Some people, the only feedback they ever give, even if it's helpful, only feedback they ever give is negative. You give very constructive criticism and feedback, but 100% of what they deliver in a relationship is negative correction. It's like the wife to say to your husband, you never tell me you love me. And he says, well, I told you, the day we got married, and if it changes, I'll let you know. Well, it's not really helpful to not give anything positive over all that time. Just give the constructive criticism. Constructive criticism that lives in isolation without any positive pretty soon tends to get less and less and less feeling like it's constructive and usable. In fact, we know this about the human brain, that the human brain can metabolize one negative piece of feedback to every 5 to 7 positive pieces of feedback. It actually, at a biochemical level, you know, um, we need, we just need a lot of positive stuff. When we failed as a human race, God told us in Genesis, He said to Adam and Eve, "Look, you don't even want to be in this feedback world, guys. What's the one tree you're not supposed to eat of? The knowledge between good and evil. There's not supposed to be any failure, but past that, there's not even supposed to be the knowledge of what failure would look like or feel like. You're just supposed to express your goodness that I've built into you through creating you in my image. What is that? Loving and honest and creative and productive and fun and celebratory and having festivals and parties and run out of wine, I'll make more. It's all supposed to be good, but we never ever go, wow, this is a lot better than the party I went to last year or the garden that the other God put me in. We were never even supposed to know the difference between good and bad, but now we do. And we fell so hard and under so much judgment that now it really takes a preponderance of good things to be able to even handle the negative stuff, even biochemically. So the first way we can screw up is we can be in the quadrants of one or the other. Some people, it's not all negative. Some people screw up because all their feedback that they ever give is very helpful, productive, positive feedback. Well, that would be great if we were perfect. And you see this in a lot of relationships. One person is the negative feedback person, the other is the positive feedback person. This person just strokes this other person over the course of years and flatters them, never confronts him, never says anything you could change or be better, or I don't like that, or sets a boundary. It's just all positive. Well, that's the best way to enable a narcissist. The very best way, because that's what they want anyway. They just want to hear how wonderful they are. Well, they are wonderful, but not 100%, right? So we can screw up by having an absence of positive. We can also screw up by having an absence of negative. Now, remember, all this is on the top row where it's helpful. Well, it goes without saying, you get down in the bottom row where it's not helpful, and we don't want to be there at all. Now, it's easy to see the not helpful negatives. We scream at somebody, we're judgmental, say you're an idiot, you're so irresponsible, you're non-specific, it's not something actionable, negative feedback that somebody can't really take and hear it as loving and that you care about me and our relationship. So there's a tone part of it, but it also there's a how actionable is the feedback. I heard a woman in a seminar one night say, got trouble with her boyfriend. And I said, well, what's going on with your boyfriend? She said, well, I told him, she said, I just don't feel connected a lot. And I said, okay, well, that's a good problem to solve. What did you say to him? And she said, well, I told him. I said, what'd you tell him? She said, I just don't feel connected. I want us to connect more. And I actually started laughing. Really? You said that to a guy, a detached guy? I want to connect more. So how'd that work out? He is going to be so clueless as to what to do with that. See, that's not helpful negative feedback. Give him something actionable, say, you know what, sometimes I feel distant or disconnected. You know, I'd really like if we could go on a walk, you know, after dinner every day. If we go on just a walk around the neighborhood after dinner and kind of talk about our day or what went on. See, that's really helpful negative feedback, right? Or how we could get better. And then here's the real blind spot is on that last quadrant. And then we'll go to some callers. That last quadrant um, is about the non helpful positive feedback. Basically, this falls into a couple of categories. One is flattery, where somebody is just tries to make the other person feel good all the time. They puff up their ego. You know, they always want to say something positive and this that, and the other, which really doesn't help us grow. It actually can just create a mirroring of the false self, right? Of what somebody's trying to, the image they're trying to put out. Or we're trying to build up their self-esteem, which is the goofiest concept ever. You know, just trying to make them feel good about themselves. You know, you get a trophy for, you know, waking up that day. Well, that's just, it doesn't improve any competencies. It doesn't improve any skills. You know, it makes somebody feel good. Tell them you love them, right? Tell them you're so glad to be with them. You know, you don't have to stroke them into feeling like they're something they're not. Flattery is usually a form of manipulation. Okay, but here's the other one. Sometimes what we do is we give positive feedback that actually is very, very good, but it's just worthless because it's not specific. Here's what we know about parenting. Don't just say to your kid, you are so smart, or you did such a good job, because it's so general, it doesn't reinforce specific behaviors and skills. If I want to say to one of my kids, you know, you're so smart, or you did such a good job, what I've also got to say is specifically, what am I talking about? Point is that you're really saying you did this very, very well. And what that does is not only feels good, but it reinforces the competency or the skill that we're trying to get better at. So when we tell people specifically, this is really helpful versus, oh, great job, that's much more helpful when we're specific. Okay, so think about your relationships. We want to make sure we're giving constructive criticism as well as positive feedback, but we want to make sure it's always in the helpful category, not the non helpful category.